Hi there, and welcome to this tutorial video on how to create split lines in DOLTs and QDOLTs, or query timesheets and daily offline timesheets. As you probably know by now, my name is Glenn Johnson, and I'll be taking you through this. Just a word of warning, if you have not seen the first video on how to use a daily offline timesheet, please would you go back and have a look at that video. It's very important for you to have that as base knowledge, because I'll be building on that knowledge in this video. We work in the flexible staffing environment. If you're a client and you have flexible staff or temp staff on your site, you require those temp staff to work maybe in different areas, to move around where they're needed. You may have temp staff that have different skills that need to work use all their skills in maybe different departments in a single day and get paid correctly for the skills that they use in that day. As a operations administrator or an agency administrator, your staff, you need to be able to capture their timesheets correctly on these daily offline timesheets. I want you to consider the following example or scenario that we're going to be using as a thread throughout this whole presentation. I want you to think of this as your workplace, wherever it is, and in your workplace you have many different departments. Let's say two of them are receiving and dispatch. You have a temp employee, let's call him John. At 8 o'clock he arrives for work, enters the premises and proceeds to his main department. In this case, his main department is receiving. He works there as a receiving clerk. That's what he mainly does. Now he works there for the morning, and at 12:30 it's now time for him to go on break time. So he goes to break, spends his hour break there. But when he comes back from break, he's asked to go to the dispatch department. At dispatch, there's quite a high workload and they need a forklift driver. They know he's a forklift license, so they say, please work here till the end of the day as a forklift driver. So he works, and at the end of the day, it's 5 o'clock, he packs up and he goes home. Now, the situation now is that we need to capture on his timesheet two what we call splits. His hours in that day have been split into different lines. He needs 4.5 hours that eventually will be charged to the receiving department and must be paid and billed to the client at the clerk rate. He also has 3.5 hours, and those must be charged to the dispatch department and must be billed and paid as a forklift driver rate. So how do we do this? When we get our offline timesheet, our daily timesheet or our query rolling timesheet, how do we capture this and ensure the system accepts it? Because as you know, there's a system pulling in these changes. How do we communicate to it, speak its language to say, insert a new split, because we're splitting the hours for John between two different splits. So I'm glad you asked the question. We're going to dive into that right away. First, I'm going to start with a demonstration. When you get your daily offline timesheet, it'll look like this. You'll see there under the receiving department, there's John's name for Tuesday, came in at 8, left at 5, took an hour break, and he's got 8 hours for the day. All right, we can also see his costing information, where he's been captured under the receiving department. He's a clerk, and there's the cost center divider. Right, but now we need to insert a new split line. Step 1, you need to click on the line or the row underneath the original row where you want to insert a split line. Right click on your mouse and insert a line. What they'll do, it's just a blank line. We just need to make a spacer. Now we need to put some information in there. So you'll click on the original row with all his details. You would right click and you would copy all that information. Then you would go to the new row you've inserted, right click and paste it into the line. Now we've got two duplicate rows, two rows exactly the same. Now we start configuring them. The duplicate row, the second row, you need to delete the PIN code, the export code, and the full name. So I'm just going to highlight them, hit delete, remove that. Very important, otherwise it's going to mix up the system and what the original row is. Leave the date, also very important. Do not change it. Also important is to leave the in time, the out time, the break time, and the shift being used. Please make no changes to these 4 things, either on the original line, the first line, or on any new split that you've inserted. Leave them exactly the same. I'll explain why it's so important a little bit later, but for now, do not make changes to that. Only make changes to hold times, normal time, overtime, 1, 2, these hold times over here, and make changes to costing information, department, position, cost center. Those are the only things you should be making changes to. So now we know that the first line we want to capture the 4.5 hours. Let's go 4 hours. Obviously 0.5 is 30 minutes. And that must stay under receiving, under the clerk position, so he's paid and billed at the same clerk rate and is separated on the invoice according to the cost center under cost center 884455, which in this case is the receiving cost center. The second line is the 3.5 hours where you move to dispatch. So let's go there, 3 hours, 13 minutes. Change the department to dispatch. Change the position to forklift driver. And for invoicing purposes, change the cost center to the dispatch cost center. And that is how you do it. Now you change, obviously it must not be approve hours. You're requesting changes, so mark that as requesting changes. Punch in your authorizer PIN, done, and then you can send it to the system. That is how to make or insert a split line to split employees' hours in the day. That's a demonstration. Just to summarize, again, when you get your daily offline timesheet, your daily timesheet, first thing you'll do to do a split is insert a new row underneath the original row. Next thing you'll do is copy and paste the information on the original row and you'll paste it into the inserted row. Next thing you'll do is remove the PIN code, the export code, and the name. Very important, it needs to be removed. And when you make the adjustments, you only make the adjustments to the hours, the total hours, total normal time, overtime, PPHW, and you make the changes to the costing information. Change the position, the rate group, the cost center. And we'll go over what you mustn't change just now in the do's and don'ts section. So once you've done that, you obviously, it's going to look like this, where you'll see 2 lines without any information over there, but the date still is there. Duplicating your in and out time, which is important, you don't change that, and your normal time is now showing the split. All right, send it to the system. System will pull in those changes and then we'll send you a new timesheet once you request the changes. And there you'll see under receiving, there's John's first line, his 4.3 hours into receiving, the 4.5 hours into receiving. And under dispatch, there's John again, and there's his 3.5 hours under dispatch, under the forklift rate. Some do's and don'ts, some very important do's and don'ts. We've gone over this already, but I'm just stressing this so that you understand the importance and don't make mistakes in the future and wonder what's going on. Always remember to remove, when you insert a split line, remove the PIN number, the export code, and the name. Always make changes to hold times and costing information, not to anything else. Some don'ts, and some very important don'ts. Do not remove the date. Leave that in the split line, in every single split line, even if you have 5 or 6 split lines. Do not remove any columns. Now we talked about rows, they're the ones that go across, that we inserted a row for the split line. Now a column is what goes down. Those downward columns, do not insert or delete any of those. Leave them where they are. This is basic functions or basic use of a daily timesheet. I probably covered it in the other videos, stressing it again in this video. But the most important is do not change the in, out, break times. Do not change the shift rule. These changes, if you make anything to these changes, that will cause the system to reprocess times for that employee for that day. And you don't want that. If you've inserted a split line for John, now you've seen that he's got 3.5 hours under dispatch and 4.5 hours under receiving. If you make a further change to that, for example, you change his in time from 8 to 9, and you send that to the system will now see a new in time, which what it will do now is it'll delete all of your manual changes. It will remove those hours that are under dispatch and they will just disappear. And then when you get your new timesheet, you'll see that he's only got 1 line under receiving, starting at 9, ending at 5, because the change that you've made has caused the system to reprocess it. If you change whole times, whole normal time, it does not cause the system to reprocess any hours. It leaves it as is, which means it doesn't remove any of your manual changes. So please, one more time, do not make any changes to in, out, break times, or the shift times if you have inserted a split line or if there's manual changes that you've made to hold times or costing information. So that is the video on the tutorial video on how to insert split lines. I hope it's been informative. I hope you've tracked with it and understood. If there's anything you've misunderstood, please contact your local representative in the area, whoever that might be, the person that trained you on the system in the first place, and they will clear up anything that you don't understand. But otherwise, good luck.